Oh, you've made me hourly instead of salary because you're afraid I'll stop selling after I hit my commission cap. Should've just let me stay home. Years ago, I was an inside sales rep for a simultaneously large and tiny company in a niche market. The quotes are because it was at least equally outside sales. I just didn't go outside except to smoke. I've since quit. They had about 50 branches across the country of various sizes. The smallest was literally one guy who processed local orders and used hotshots for delivery. The largest had about 50 employees. I made 6 for my branch. I was literally the first salesman with a background in anything resembling sales that my branch had ever hired. They'd always hired the least socially awkward industry professionals they could prior to me, and they'd had their CSR doing the selling for over a year until I came on, so expectations were high. When they hired me, we had somewhat heated negotiations over the comp plan. It was a $42,000 base salary plus commission with a $56,000 OTE and $65,000 cap. I asked what I was meant to do after I hit the cap, to which they replied, "Continue to do your job," as if I wasn't going to have a problem with generating new business for free. I said that I was gonna need a bonus structure beyond the cap if they wanted me to do any more hunting after that point. I made it clear that I'd service my accounts when they called, but I wanted to be clear that they were going to be disappointed if they expected me to make outbound calls looking for new business after I'd maxed my comp plan, and that I'd definitely enjoy the extra time at home with my family over the holidays. They said they understood, and we went through the onboarding. I worked almost exactly 40 hours for almost 2 months, early October, early December, before I had jury duty and missed a day. My check was about $150 light compared to what it had been, so I complained to payroll. Benefits kicked in at 90 days. That's when I found out I was making $21 an hour and was not, in fact, pulling a salary. Presumably, this was to force me into the office, as we didn't have remote access to the local network that logged our hours, just the ordering/inventory software. I didn't get even a prorated Christmas bonus because that counts as benefits, and you have to work 90 days to receive those. Cue malicious compliance. I discovered that if I left the house 30 minutes earlier, my 80-minute commute would take less than 25, so instead of showing up around 8:30 and chilling in my car for a bit so I was working at 9, I was there at 7 with the warehouse guy, sending emails. I started working through lunch as I ate at my desk as opposed to burning an hour off campus or in the break room. I didn't even realize I was losing an hour/day to lunch. I also discovered that if I stayed till 6:30, I'd get home by 7, as opposed to leaving a little after 5 and getting home around 6:30. So, I spent an extra 5 hours/week away from home and worked an extra 22 compared to the 35 I was getting paid for before I figured it out. With the OT, I was clocking north of $2,000 more than intended every month, and oddly enough, no one even noticed until the internal auditor verified W-2s and noticed that I made significantly more than the branch manager. I didn't hit my commission cap until late November, so I spent the rest of the year training with the tech and/or warehouse guy. Both stoners. They tried to put me on the same salaried comp plan I'd originally agreed to, but it was enough of a pay cut to qualify for constructive dismissal, so I got to quit and still collect unemployment for a month before I found another gig. Now to the comments. I recently had a company of only 200 employees tell me they don't do offer letters because they are a small company. Every company I have ever worked for, ginormous, 100k employees, or tiny, 30, did offer letters. I want terms and pay spelled out so there's no waffling or backtracking. I worked for a company where there was just me and the boss and I still had a written contract. Edit, I'm embarrassed by the votes. It was a white-collar job in the UK, so nothing special. It's seriously just less of a headache for all parties involved, even if it's a solid relationship with open communication both ways. Just one thing confuses me: does your contract of employment not detail your pay structure? Often smaller businesses don't actually have written contracts. It sounds like a company this size should have issuing proper contracts, but we're waiting for the legal team is an easy excuse. That sounds insane to me, not having a document that details both the employees and employers' rights and responsibilities. It seems like an excuse for the company to make the employee do whatever the company wants them to do, regardless of what they were employed for, with no comeback. I work for a city, and at one point the police department ended up working extra hours because one of the employees was out on extended sick leave. The way their contract was written had something that basically said they would cover shifts for ill employees without extra pay as long as it was less than 2 hours per shift. So, people would come on 2 hours early or stay 2 hours late. Always seemed fair to me since everyone did their part. Anyway, police threw a fit about the contract they basically wrote and demanded that they get OT or didn't have to work extra. They were all salary employees, so this wasn't usually an issue until now. City Council said that they didn't have to work more than 40 hours a week and they would just go without police coverage part of the day, usually in the middle of the night to early morning. If they did work more than 40 they would get double time. Thing is, they modified the contract that covered all emergency personnel for the city that said we didn't have to work more than 40 hours a week. Those of us over at the fire/EMS department work 96 hours a week, 48 hours on, 48 hours off. Since the contract changed, the council made it do over half our week was now double time. Council shit a brick once they realized they just gave us huge raises and said that the contract didn't include us in wage increases, which it absolutely did. They rewrote it in a way that said we didn't get the pay increase the police were getting but missed the part about not working more than 40 hours. Halfway through the first week after the change we asked them when they were going to hire a bunch of new medics to cover the rest of the week, since we had already all capped out our time. Now as an agency it would be illegal to not respond to emergency medical calls, failure to act, but since we were no longer allowed to work more than 40 hours, we were going to have to leave our first shift 8 hours early and it was on the city to make up for the lack of available employees. We ended up negotiating a new contract that included some things we had been asking for years and we continued to work our normal shifts, but it was fun watching them try to explain why it was okay to bend over backwards to do whatever the police wanted while trying to screw over the medics and firefighters. Local paper had a field day with that. You should post this as its own story. It's good. Edit, grammar. Yup. I'll never understand managers/owners who try to save money by underpaying salespeople. Literally every dollar that salesperson takes home, she's putting $5 to $10 into the company. OMG, this guy made us too much money, let's shut him down. It's like if you were buying $5 of materials, putting in $5 of labor, and selling the widget for $20. That third shift made 1,000 widgets, that cost us $10,000. Shut it down. I had a boss like that. Her daughters also worked there. One made more hourly than I did because she was management. Well, the manager daughter routinely took a day off every week and then took off a full week during our busiest season. The other daughter quit and I ended up taking over her job. Boss was pissed I was making so much and taking home more than her management daughter. Okay, fine. I'll purposely leave work for her to do then. Commissions on certain things were part of the job. Management daughter wasn't getting much in commissions because she was never there to do anything, then I got yelled at because shit wasn't getting done. The funny thing? The next year, it was seasonal, she wanted to cut my job responsibilities in half and cut my pay. I said no. She ended up hiring 2 people to do my job, one of whom walked out in the middle of the shift because her verbal abuse had gotten worse. The other quit at the end of the season. Should have just kept me. I put up with the shit and made that company money by bringing in new clients. Oh well. Guess that explains why they're not around anymore. I'm always surprised at the stupidity of business owners in the stories I read here. If it's really so common for stupid people to own and run businesses, what the heck are the generally more competent doing not getting into it? So, You apparently signed something saying yes, I'm salary, and then you weren't. Screw malicious compliance, that's a contract lawsuit gift wrapped, unless of course you didn't sign anything and these negotiations were verbal. OP replied. My comp plan said base, $42K. It didn't say salary, so apparently it was cool for them to make me hourly, as long as that's how it was from the beginning. We'd spoken about salary, but since the word wasn't in the paperwork, it was my misunderstanding from a legal perspective. Very odd indeed. Base implies salary, as that means by the end of your year you should have been compensated at least $42,000. If they secretly switch you to hourly, and you didn't work enough hours, you'd still be owed that much.